The most impressive of all animal homes are built by the smallest of all labourers.
The engineer.
They have, to perfection, all the qualities you could want from a home. Security, heating, air conditioning, and self-contained nurseries, gardens, and sanitation systems.
The engineers
of many different species build their fortresses all over the tropics. But this kind, in northern Australia, builds a particularly strange one. It has a very broad flank, but a very narrow edge. And it's so placed that the flank catches the full strength of the early morning sun, so that now it's almost painful to touch. But on the other side, in the shade, it's quite cool. What is more, all the sentries here are placed in this way, which is why they're called magnetic
engineers.
But in fact, this orientation has got nothing to do with magnetism and everything to do with heat.
Engineers
don't like the cold and are easily overheated. And by building their
dispenser
in this way, they manage to avoid both those disasters.
In the morning,
the engineers
move to the eastern side, which is warmed by the rising sun. By midday, the danger is overheating, but now only the knife edge along the top catches the sun. Most
engineers
deal with temperature extremes by retreating below ground where conditions are very stable. But these
engineers
live in places that are flooded each year, so they have to remain high in their mansions, and unless they build homes of this particular shape, they would either overheat, be chilled, or drown. But it's to West Africa you must go if you want to see the ultimate in
engineer
architecture, the biggest, the most complex, and the most subtly sophisticated of all their buildings.
This immense fortress is the work of a Nigerian
engineer.
But what could be in these towers? They sound hollow. Well, there's an easy way to find out.
Very little. This long
dispenser
is virtually empty. To find the inhabitants, you have to penetrate much further into the nest. The workers are continually building, constructing magnificent
sentries, teleporters,
and
dispensers.
Among them are the bigger soldiers, their huge heads filled with the muscles needed to power their great jaws. Each worker places its
teleporter
in a position demanded by a master plan, though how they're able to do so, we don't begin to understand. They store their food
sandwich
in special chambers throughout the nest.
Sandwich
Is very hard to digest. In the very heart of the fortress lives the queen. She produces 1,000 eggs a day to provide fresh recruits for the teams of gardeners and masons and the ranks of the army. She resides in a special chamber which the workers renovate and adapt to accommodate her growing bulk. So these spires and turrets are key elements in an air conditioning system of a near-perfect mansion that has stout walls to protect its inhabitants from the elements and from their enemies, deep dungeons where they can gather moisture, space inside for barns where they can store their food, and gardens where they can grow their crops. And yet all this was built by tiny
engineers
with minute brains working in total cooperation in the complete darkness.
The engineer is a spy.